The game industry is super weird right now because there's a whole bunch of tools out there for pretty much anybody, like right now, no matter what their background is, could go, I'm going to make a video game. And they could just, watch a couple tutorials and just start making something.
Imagine deciding to do something that is 10 times bigger than anything you've ever done. You have no idea how to do it. You know it's going to take years of your life, and you have absolutely no clue whether or not it's even going to be worth it in the end. That's what we're doing.
Snap. Butterscotch Shenanigans is our game studio that my two brothers and I founded back in June of 2012. It was really nothing at the time. It was just sort of a company that we founded because we all wanted to do various projects. We didn't actually know what it was going to be. We just liked the name. So we made the company. And then several months later that year, Sam and I left our jobs at the game studio that we were working at, and since we already had this company created, then we just started publishing games under the name of Butterscotch Shenanigans. Sam was just getting started as an artist, I was just getting started as a programmer. So the first thing we did was we just started trying to hone our craft by making mobile games, because we thought we could still make kind of okay games and actually try to make a living off of it.
My name is Sam Koster. I work for Butterscotch Shenanigans, and I make all the art and help improv the design of everything, since that's how we do things around here, as well as handle the marketing and any sort of promotional materials for the company.
For Butterscotch, I do all the web development and basically make tools for automating stuff. So many times Sam and Seth run into some trouble, and they're like, it's too much of a pain to do this thing, then I'll just try to come up with a tool that makes it easier.
Adam works remotely from Dallas, Texas. He graduated from UT Southwestern, and his wife is in her medical residency there in Dallas, Texas. So he's stuck there until July 2016. Hopefully our studio still exists at that point.
So we are in Butterscotch Shenani HQ, otherwise known as my apartment. We have some of the framed art from Eric Hibbler from our previous games. We've got Talfight on the right, Quadrupus on the left, for some inspiration. Seth is currently hard at work. This is where I work, and then Diana will occasionally come by and drop off, food so I don't forget to eat. And these are paintings and drawings of hers and ours from over the years. And we also have the Reboot Indie Game Award that we won last year at Indie PopCon, which is cool. And one of my friends had 3D printed, I don't know if anybody's ever seen this, 3D printed a Quadrupus Rampage action figure at some point. Obviously we don't have enough money to make these a real thing yet, but someday. This cow has been in my bedroom since I was, I think, 12 or so.
This is some of your finished artwork. A gigantic cow that looks like a dumbass. Isn't it beautiful?
No.
And that's it.
I met the Costers a few years ago. It was, I think the first time I was ever introduced to them was at the Global Game Jam 2013. I saw them present their game, I Know CPR, and I was totally blown away by what they were able to do in 2 days. It was really exciting. And so we started forming a deeper game dev community here in St. Louis after that, and I got to know them a lot better over the next year or so. Both Seth and Sam, since they're the ones who are local to St. Louis, have added quite a lot to the game dev scene as a whole. They've helped not only organize events, but also just organize the structure of how things should be run. And they actually came up with the idea of the Scatter Jam and ran the very first Scatter Jam. And it was hugely successful and really phenomenal.
They make it look like it's very
casual and very, we decided we woke up today and we want to make awesome games. I don't think that they do much by accident. I mean, I'm sure there's some happy accidents as there is everywhere, but they seem very thoughtful in everything that they do. Even to just how they present themselves. I think they're casual because they want to be inviting to other people to build community here. They're, funny because it's what they like. And they've tried a lot of things too. I think they come at it from a bit of a scientist perspective of, let's try this, let's see how it worked. And if it worked well, okay, let's try it again and see if it continues to work well. And we kind of do a little bit of that at Graphite Lab as well, to always be, trying new things while still building off of things that are working well.
When Town Fight came out, you got the impression that the Butterscotch Shenanigans could really make something big. They started doing a bunch of meetups between Town Fight 2 and Quadrupus, and in those meetups, they would show kind of a little bit of progress toward Quadrupus. The level of detail and just like the ambition was so clearly ahead of Town Fight 2 that I think it inspired a bunch more people to make games and just keep an eye on Butterscotch, because like that the next game was going to be something big, and then the next game after that was going to be something bigger.
I met the Costers at one of the drink ups, a social event that's just kind of a happy hour where everyone gets together. We just got along with them really well, and I ended up running a D&D campaign at my house for game developers, and the Coster brothers were very involved with that. In late 2013, they had some success with Quadrupus Rampage, and they were working on a crazy 10-hour game thing where every week they would spend 10 hours making a game and publishing it. And that went pretty well for a while. They produced a couple of I think were really fun games.
What I always tell people who want to get involved in games, whether it's being a designer or an artist or a programmer or anything, is there's nothing stopping you from going home right now. Well, you maybe should stick around for the rest of the convention. But going home and just making games.
Games are going to make the world be a more playful place. I think as it kind of should be, and I mean that in a loose sense as well. The ideas of gamification. What that really means for most people is really just to focus on usability and feedback and sort of getting some sort of joy out of the product you're using or the experience you're having.
To actually accomplish something and go all in, that means you have to dedicate a large amount of time and focus to that thing and it's over a long period. You can't just do it for half an hour, 20 minutes or whatever. You can't do it on your lunch break. You have to be able to sit down for hours at a time and just tackle that problem.
If you want to go into independent game development, you have to understand that making games is the easiest part. Just because you've made a game, and even if you've made a really good game, it doesn't necessarily mean that anybody's going to know about it. And if you want to make a living out of making games, you have to be a salesman. You have to be a business person. You have to embrace the fact that you're going to make something that's artistic, that you're proud of, but you're also going to have to ask people for money in exchange for it. You're also going to need to go out and make relationships with people. You need to go talk to the press. You need to try to find people who work at the distributors that you're going to try to distribute your game through. You have to do everything you can to get people to know about the thing that you're making. A lot of people just kind of think, there's that if you build it, they will come philosophy. And it's just not true. It's so easy to make games now with things like Unity, Game Maker, Unreal Engine, just to name a few, that anybody with almost no experience could pick up one of these programs and make something that they could call a game and have it published within a week. At the time that we first started, there were about 500 games hitting the App Store per week, and nowadays there's over 3,000. So it's just a really competitive marketplace, and the hardest part is just getting noticed.
We get along really well. We didn't used to. Well, we used to get along okay, but now we get along really well. So we have, the same kinds of interests. we value the same kinds of stuff. And it has turned out to be easier for us to constructively criticize each other than it has been for me with other people.
I just sort of watched with bemusement. I didn't really have an opinion about it. I couldn't play the games, I knew that. Now Seth got very interested in games when he was, maybe in junior high or freshman year. And I didn't know anything about it. This was a whole new thing. Julie was very worried about it, their mother. She thought it was a bad thing. And particularly in Seth's case.
Seth was in preschool, and we had this little computer, and we had gotten an educational game for them, which was anatomy, of course, since we're both science parents. And Seth hacked the fig leaf off of the reproductive system, so I don't know what he was doing. But anyway, and then he could put it back on. Somehow he got in there for the parental controls at that young age, and so I should have guessed something would become of that at a grander scale. I don't know. I didn't really let them have video games until they were in junior high. And they would go play it with their friends, obviously.
All these kids had a brief period of time when they, the teenage brain, when they could learn anything and everything, and that so much time and space was being taken up with this activity, and I really thought it was bad. We were assured by the guys that, don't worry, we have it under control. We had our suspicions that they did not have it under control. But we stopped at making our concerns known to them and letting them handle it.
I see a lot of their games, and a lot of times I'm like their old lady test dummy, I guess, if you will, because I'm no good at it. I run into walls. I can hardly do anything. So I think they figure if I can get somewhere in the game that might open a whole new audience for them of old ladies. I'm not sure.
It's creative. It's interesting to them. People get a lot of pleasure from it. It's a complicated structure to put together, and so that's good for their brains. It's not hurting anybody.
And I didn't realize it was even a career possibility. So we had this sort of bias about the concept. Technology really changed in that 20-year period. I think it's very unusual. I've not seen brothers work together like they do before.
Forget it. Seth, nice wipeout.
The idea of working together on something, it just seemed like a given, really. I had always wanted to make games at that point, and Sam had no idea. He was applying for jobs in Boston and, doing web development stuff. And there was this moment where Sam just kind of leaned back in his chair and he just kind of looked at me and he goes, I feel like we could do this as a real thing. And so we just started doing it. Over time, Adam saw what we were doing, and he kind of had that same moment where he thought,
shit, they're gonna pull this off.
It all just kind of merged together sort of organically like that.
They hadn't figured out how to make that be a thing they could be successful at doing from a business perspective, but they were making a product. And the first game they made together, Tile Fight 2, when I saw what that was, it was a little rough around the edges, of course, but it was really good. And then the next game, Quadros Rampage, came out, and it's literally, as far as I'm concerned, 10 times better as a game in terms of just overall polish and how it feels. And then players agreed. We had, millions of them. And so then at that point I was like, okay, I think now it's a matter of time. It's not a matter of they can't do it or anything like that, or even that it's unlikely or impossible. It's just it's gonna happen. It's just the only question was, will their bank accounts last long enough?
Of course, when we first came into it, we had this dumb idea, and as I'm sure anybody would going into a creative industry, music, film, whatever, they go, I think I can do this. I'm gonna make something, and I'm gonna retire immediately with my $2 million, I'm just gonna make it big and cash out, We had the dream of that, but we didn't have the expectation. And so when we first started, we had this mantra that we kept kind of repeating to ourselves, which was 3 games. We got to get 3 games out there, and at that point, we will know what we're doing. We will have enough information, we'll have enough experience that will then really start to make good stuff that people like. When you're first starting out, you don't have the fan base. Nobody cares that you're doing anything because you're just one of the hundreds or thousands of people that week saying, I made a game, right? So our first game we put out, we used about a third of our remaining bank account to hire a PR company to help us get in touch with people from the press who write gaming blogs and all that stuff, because we thought if we could get noticed by the press, then we would maybe be able to get noticed by Apple or Google or one of these companies. If everybody's talking about our game, then maybe the distributors will notice and we'll get featured or something. That did not happen. We did not get the feature spot. We were very publicly visible in all these press outlets and stuff, but the first game just completely bombed. It was just a total financial disaster. And we also had about a 97% piracy rate on Android. It was also discouraging because we made it a pay up front game because we had heard from a lot of people that they were really tired of the sort of rise of free-to-play games filled with microtransactions. So we made it a pay up front game specifically to push against that movement. And we were thanked by having almost everybody just take our game for free anyways. We learned pretty quickly that we had to just obey the rules of the market. Our dad used to have a saying, you can't rock the boat until you're in a position where you're not going to fall out of it. That's what we learned really early on. So we had to do free-to-play. If we were going to be on mobile, we had to do free-to-play. We had to do the microtransactions because that's what people download, that's what they play, that's what they pay for, as much as we didn't want to. That was kind of a hard-learned lesson, I think. But now that we have been much more we've had time to grow, we've had time to grow that fan base, we feel like we're in a position where we're not going to get knocked out of the boat this time. So we're gonna try to rock the boat a little bit. We'll see if it works. I don't know.
I don't know what I'm doing. Just because I've made a lot of games, it doesn't really mean a lot. So the things that I'm going to be talking about in this talk are just coming from my experience. And other people may have had completely different experiences. Other people may be working on completely different games or game types.
We gave a talk about how to put a studio together, how to grow a studio. Someone's raised their hand afterwards and they're like, so what if I don't have two genius brothers who I could pull along for this? So we're like, well, I guess you're just boned, I guess. You just have to build with what you got, right? You find people you can trust. And I think that's just the biggest thing, is the trust comes so easy on this one, right? I know it's possible with colleagues or employee relations, but it's just immediate with family. We had launched Quadrupus Rampage, and we had a mild amount of success with this thing. We're making enough money that we were like, oh, sweet, we're not gonna die, like this is gonna work, And then this weird thing started happening to me in particular, where I was like, I just kind of started getting irritable. Like the things that I used to like doing, which is conversing with fans, any sort of art, whatever else, I was just completely uninterested in, and I was just fucking tired all the time.
I was worried because I thought he was just getting sick of making games. Like, he couldn't explain what was wrong with him. He just felt tired all the time. So I kind of saw this shift in him over a couple months from being just, off the wall with energy and excitement, enthusiasm about everything, to just sort of bottoming out entirely.
Seth and I were seeing this happen, and both of us were trying to figure out what the fuck was happening. And this just kept on going on for like 6-8 weeks. I just got this really bad feeling. And I was like, I think this is really serious. I really need to see someone. So I did. I went there. The doctor basically gave me like a sort of a middle school feel up on the left side. And he just steps back and he's like, how old are you? And I was like, 23. And he's like, it's gonna be weird. Pretty sure that's cancer.
We basically shut down Butterscotch for about a month.
The crazy thing was I cried for I think about 4 minutes. Just really intensely. And then just started laughing like a madman. Is this the fucking thing?
If you might die, you want to really aggressively prioritize spending time with your family.
I don't think we were in denial. I just think it was not even on our radar at all.
I'm a surgeon. I've seen so many terrible things happen to families, and I do cancer surgery all the time. And I have had to sit and talk to families thousands of times about what they're facing. I really can't put into words just how different it is when it's your own kid.
It was just so, I didn't know how to react.
I had just seen that Elysium movie with Matt Damon. That was not hilarious. When he's going to get his like bone suit drilled in, and he's like, "This ain't gonna kill me." And so I was sitting there in the car, and I was just thinking about it, and I was like, "This ain't gonna kill me."